Now, with the highly anticipated One Piece chapter 1000 being around the corner, I thought it was a good time to make my prediction slash discussion on what is going to happen next moving forward in the story, especially given the hype that this chapter has gotten from several different sources, from interviews to little setups that we got in previous chapters. Regardless of what happens in the next chapter, One Piece's 1000 chapter is definitely the start of a sort of new era. Again, definitely congrats to Oda for reaching this amazing accomplishment. Now, usually for some time now, I usually keep my expectations low when it comes to potentially hype subjects that we get from interviews, but I do really think that next year for One Piece is going to be pretty damn huge, and I think a lot of the things that are coming are going to hit us by surprise. And I felt this way mainly because we haven't really gotten too much interviews from Oda as of recently, like we usually do from like the previous years, and so we're sort of going into year 2021 with no sort of expectations. And so once these reveals hit, you're gonna hit hard. But back to my prediction of what is going to happen in the next One Piece chapter. Now, if you guys have watched my previous chapter reviews and discussions, you would know what to expect from my predictions, as this is something that I've reiterated time and time again, just because of the chain of events Oda has set up in the story and everything just sort of coming into fruition in chapter 1000. And for the most part, there are two key points that I've been looking at since the middle portion of the raid on Onigashima, but in this video I will talk about three because we got some little setups here and there in the previous chapter that we can talk about and expand upon. Now, even if these things don't necessarily happen in the next chapter, these are still things that I think will happen later on this arc regardless, just because it makes sense from a story standpoint. Now, first off, I will start with the least likely to happen, which I think will be the possibility of a Rocks flashback. Now, the Rocks has been something that has been teased ever since we were back in the Reverie, with Garb hinting at the possibility of the Rocks returning, and then finally it was revealed back in chapter 957 of what the Rock consisted of and ultimately how they fell to ruin. But as hype as chapter 957 was, with Oda you always get more questions, and so even though we got a lot of crazy reveals in that chapter, there was still a sense of vagueness in terms of what really happened, and because of that vagueness, it led to a lot of speculations to certain different elements in that plotline. Things such as, did Rocks really die? Where did God Valley go? Why did it disappear? Why was Roger and Garb protecting the Celestial Dragon? There's a lot of elements there to look into, and because it was a brief flashback, we didn't get too much to go off of. And that's one of the best alluring elements of One Piece, where you get these crazy reveals, but those reveals come with more questions, and that's what I think happened in that chapter. But again, Oda usually comes full circle with a lot of these flashbacks and gives us more exposition on what really or what actually happened, and so I think this is going to be the case for the Rocks flashback, in which we are going to get the entire story in bits and pieces, but I think everything will come full circle. So with the Rocks flashback, I think it's not going to happen in the next chapter just because we're going into the fight, and I feel like this is something that's going to play a role towards the end of the fight. But again, it really depends depending on how Oda transitions into the flashback. But again, given that Big Mom and Kaido are fighting together, I think they are going to reminisce about the times that they had during the Rocks, and then maybe a transition to the Rocks flashback happens. Also, there is still some mysteries surrounding Kaido's Devil Fruit and how he got his Devil Fruit. Now, we know that it was from Big Mom, but why was it at that point in time that Big Mom gave it to him? It seems a bit strange. And we know that this is also something that Big Mom considers a debt. So I feel like there's more to be said there that Oda hasn't revealed yet. So yeah, I think the Rocks flashback will happen, but not in the next chapter. Now, moving on to the second key point, which is the Will of D. Now, with the Will of D, this was something that we always knew was going to take place, or we were going to get some information about it ever since Yamato's reveal, just because Yamato has access to Odin's journal. And given the fact that Odin was someone who traveled with Roger and knows about all these secrets, I think it makes a lot of sense that Yamato would also know about these secrets, given that he has the journal. So things such as the Will of D, the Ancient Kingdom, the Poneglyphs, such and such is knowledge that Yamato is aware of. In the previous chapter, we come to find out that Yamato seems to be ready to drop some knowledge on Momo. Not sure what he's about to tell him, but I think it's going to be important in context in terms of what is going on in Wano. Now again, in terms of the Will of D, I don't think we're going to get the whole story here, just because I think it's too early, and also because I think that's something that the Straw Hats have to perceive by himself. And we also know that this is something that's supposed to take place during the end game. And this is also very important for Robin because her whole thing is about knowing about the past. And so I think we're going to see Robin become more active in a way, and we're starting to see it already with Big Mom and Kaido, given the fact that they want her alive so they could access the world poneglyphs. And there's the possibility that other individuals might come for her as well, like Blackbeard. We also know that Law is very interested in the D as well. We saw that in the last couple of chapters that he wants to know about the mysteries behind it. So since Law is also a focus here, we might get some of the answers through him as well. But again, I think it's fine that we get some information about the Will of D here. Not the whole thing, but just pieces to the whole puzzle. And that's how Oda has done it for the most part in terms of how he implements mysteries in the story. It comes in sections and is usually not a bomb drop of information. So maybe we get what the name stands for in this arc, and then later on we get more pieces to the puzzle. And I think it's very natural for us to start getting information about it at this point in the story, given that Wano is going to be a very vital juncture in the story. Now finally we come to the third key point that I think will take place in the next chapter, and I think it's almost guaranteed at this point just because of the build-up that we've got in the previous chapters, and that is Kaido versus the Supernovas. And this really stems from the fact that ever since chapter 995, we were always getting updates as to where Luffy, Kid, and Law were, and as we got more chapters, they kept making progress towards the next floor. And so given that we're reaching this milestone of a chapter, I think it makes a lot of sense that we're going to see the Supernovas versus Big Mom and Kaido in a very amazing double spread, right? To sort of mark the beginning of something epic. And again, this is the scenario that I think will most likely happen just because of the natural progression of the story and the build-up we've had in the previous chapters as well. I do think it's going to be a very amazing spread once we do see all of them lined up against Kaido versus Big Mom, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they're going to operate together, even though they are rivals to some degree against obviously Kaido and Big Mom. So we might struggle in the beginning at first, but I think as things progress, Kaido and Big Mom are going to be shook. We know that Luffy has grown massively as a fighter as well as Kid, so I think these two are going to be in the front lines of the battle. Law is going to be a very important figure in the fight because I think he's going to be the best support that they can ever have. Again, if you guys have watched Stampede and saw what Law did in that movie, you would know that he's going to be very essential for this fight, having an ability like his. Zoro and Killer, I think for the most part, are going to be support as well. We know that Zoro holds a very vital piece to Kaido's history, so Zoro is going to be an outlier in all of this as well because he holds Odin's weapon and is the foreshadowed great samurai since Odin. And hopefully we do get to see a lot from Killer as well. I'm very curious as to what role he's going to play in this fight. But again, comment down below what you guys think is going to happen. I think spoilers are out based off what I've heard on Twitter, so be careful as to not get spoiled. I would appreciate it if you guys dropped a like on the video. Subscribe for more One Piece content on this channel. It is Pharaoh, and I will see you folks later. Peace.